Hello, everyone. Welcome here.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
And we're joined by our friend Dave, all the way from somewhere in the Netherlands. Where exactly, Dave?
I'm close to Arnhem at the moment, close to Germany also. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, indeed.
Yeah. And so we were just chatting. This is a really fast-moving topic that we're going to tackle this morning, and and that's safe. I'm sure, like all of us, we're really working to understand and how we can embrace this technology to, take our business, make us all more efficient. Yeah, Dale and I have joked around and said things like, Dale using generative AI is better than Dale without generative AI, right? That, I think, really strikes the point. Dale is still needed, right? The person driving it is still needed to, and we're going to talk about some of that. So, So,
Don, how hard was it when you think back? The complexity of learning how to use this tool is actually much greater than the previous tool I think of is when I'm old enough to remember the first calculator. And there were a few things you needed to know with a calculator, but not too many. And some people use the reverse Polish notation calculators, but there was only a handful of things and you could get fantastic results. This thing, it's still an uncharted field. And just before we went live, we were talking with Dave about basically how to get the best results. And Dave, you might want to say what you were telling us.
Yeah, well, like I said, the prompt is very important, of course. So you can ask a question, but it's always better to start the question by, in what kind of role would you like ChatGPT to act? So in the role of, for instance, the Gartner consultant or the marketing assistant. So in your role as, it's almost like a user story. In your role as, and then a role. Give me advice, write for me this, and use an upbeat language, use strategic vocabulary, just the prompt is so important.
And Dale commented, we were talking about, we've all been trained to have really short, like from Google, we would just pick up keywords, right? And some of us old guys wouldn't even use the question there. We would just try to pick up all the keywords. And so what were we talking about as far as prompts, Dale?
Yeah, just that you're rewarded in this new universe for being verbose and thoughtful in your prompt, as opposed to, as Don was saying, like I still was doing it last night. I was looking for some ramps for lifting cars up for doing work underneath them. And so I'm typing in rubber car mat, something like that. And it wouldn't occur to me to go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I have a machine shop and I want to raise a car and tell my story and I'm looking to buy this. And the results I would get would be better in that case.
Anyway,
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with introducing our presenters here today. So I'll hand things over to Chris.
Yeah, so my name's Chris. I'm part of our customer solutions team here at Safe Software. So my role is really to help organizations make sure they're getting the most out of their FME licenses and their assets. So here to give you some ideas for using the ChatGPT functionality in FME. Dale, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Chris. My name is Dale Lutz. I'm one of the two co-founders of Safe, and I've been having a blast giving lots of thought together with the amazing team at Safe as to how we can best deliver value to all of you, our customers, using the new techniques that are available to us.
And my name's Don Murray. I'm one of the two good-looking guys on this call, and I'm the other co-founder of Safe Software. With that, I'll pass it off to the other good-looking guy, Dave Lurie. We're easy to get mixed up. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, the same haircut. Yeah. So my name is Dave. I'm above all a techie, I would say, born with the talent to be curious and to wonder. Started a career in software development, databases, memory caches and stuff. And then later got the chance to lead a GIS consulting company in the Netherlands. And haven't lost my curiosity for technology. So here I am.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. So at this point, I'll get us all to turn off our webcam so that we can save on bandwidth for our upcoming demos. And I'll give a quick intro to our platform Livestorm if this is your first time using it. If you do have any audio or video issues, click that help button on the bottom left. It has 4 simple troubleshooting steps. Share your emoji reactions with us throughout the webinar with that react button on the bottom middle. And then we do have quite a few polls coming up today, so keep an eye on that polls tab. We'll prompt you when to complete those. And if you do have any questions throughout, please do leave those in the questions panel on the bottom right. We do have a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. If you do wish to download the deck, you can do so now, clicking the download button on the top right of the PDF here. All right, and with that, I'll hand things back to Don and Dale to go over our agenda.
Sure. Yeah. So we'll just whip through this quickly. So first, we're just going to do an introduction. We know there's a number of folks here who aren't familiar with Safe for FME, so we'll go really quickly with that. And then we're going to pass it off to our good friend Dave, who's going to talk about, AI at Tensing. And then we're going to get into some of the things we've been doing at FME. We'll show you some transformer updates. We're going to show you a sneak peek of a generative AI reader, which is really, really exciting. And then we're going to look at, exploring, what happens beyond OpenAI, because of course, generative AI is a big and growing space. And then we'll do some sneak peeks on how generative AI can help us author workspace is really, really great. And then some resources and then some Q&A.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It is. Yeah. So introduction. Yes.
Hey, this is our all new logo.
It's our all new logo, which we love. Dale and I are so excited about it. It's bright, it's crisp, it's clean, and it really takes us, sets the stage for the next 30 years for Safe Software.
Yeah. Where we're all about bringing life to data. And it's even more fun to do that with a little bit of help from generative artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and notice it's not bring data to life, it's bring life to data. By bringing life to data, you make life better. So, and that's, definitely generative AI. We're bringing generative AI to data, and the impact on all our lives is going to be, just super exciting. Okay, that's kind of what we look like if you go to our site.
Yep.
And we won't go through all these, but just for new, you can see we have 25,000 organizations around the world use us. We have 29,000. We have 200,000 users, and so we're a global company and been around for a long time. So we're really in the data integration space, and our strength is spatial. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and
we pride ourselves on being able to be deployed pretty much anywhere that you want us to. We believe in data gravity, and that your processing should be close to where your data is. We think that our tech tools give you amazing productivity, and we're hoping that we can actually boost that with some of these techniques we're going to show today. And above all, we really do care about each of our customers and want to see them succeed. And that's why we've followed this restaurant model since the beginning of time. And Don, I see you've done some renos to our restaurant. It looks pretty good.
I definitely have. Thanks, Elizabeth, for doing that. And one of the big differences with between Safe and all our competitors is Safe Software is not the product. We are not doing all this to try to sell or market the company Safe Software for, whereas there's a lot of companies out there that are controlled by VCs where the whole point is to sell the company. That's why a VC buys a company, because they try to sell it. And so we focus all our effort on the product and our team to provide the best product and the best support that we can. So that's a big differentiator for Safe Software. And you can tell that in the last one, you get it all. We don't nickel and dime you for different connectors. We give you every connector, and as new connectors come out, you get them. We give you all the components, and that also is a big differentiator. Makes it really easy. You just buy the FME platform. You get it all. There's not some hidden thing you're missing. So yeah.
So over the years, this is sort of the history of the different types of data that we have supported, and you can kind of look at that graph and follow it to the top and see where we are today. But that's our history.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody touches the number of different data types. Yeah.
Yes, we have supported. Somebody's asking about gaming. I think it was the Unreal Engine. There's a writer in FME that you can use to put data out into that.
That's right. And we also did a lot of stuff with the blocks. Minecraft.
Oh yeah, Minecraft, of course. Yeah,
exactly. And here's our platform with all the logos. And again, you buy the platform, you get it all. So And this is super exciting. And the Gartner Magic Quadrant's coming out later this year. This is the Gartner customer choice. So this is all the vendors who are in our space. They get customers to express how they feel about the product. And Safe Software was basically the one in North America that was the top rank. So you can see who the other vendors are in our in the space that we play in.
So generative AI tech, this is our thesis statement, is that it is generating workflows across the knowledge-based industries. And we believe that FME makes it easy to apply the power of API-based generative AI to all data and systems. And we're going to show some of this. And we're going to go to the next slide here. We're going to try to show you how generative AI and FME makes new things possible. And to kick us off on that, we're going to pass the torch to our friend Dave over at Tensing, who's going to walk us through a case study about some of the things they've been up to and made available. So Dave, take it away.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Dale. Well, on behalf of the Tensing team, I want to share some of our R&D with you today. Tensing is a consulting professional services company, part of the international Avinion Group, family-owned business. And in Europe, we operate under the Tensing brand. We specialize in data, geospatial data. So that's also what we're going to talk about today. And we help organizations elevate their spatial intelligence. And we started relatively early with the use of AI in a geospatial context, and have seen huge progress that has been made in recent years. Those first machine learning and natural language processing projects in our R&D labs were great learnings. However, now leveraging modern AI like OpenAI, integrating it into our workflows is giving us some amazingly new possibilities. And I have the honor to be here today, but I represent a lot of smart people from our company, my colleagues. They worked on these AI innovations, and some of the work of Oliver, David Eagle, and Simon has been made public. And it all started early this year when Oliver created the first demo. It was an FME Flow app that summarizes raw text. So, for example, it could be used to create a summary of textual information stored against database records as part of a larger FME workspace. And then quickly a second demo followed. And that is an FME Flow app that allows you to upload PDFs and then generate a summary that includes a summary text, keywords, locations, even the detected language of the document, and geometric point locations in well-known text. And we've made some of that R&D publicly available on hub.safe.com, where you can find our OpenAI ChatGPT summarizer transformers. And now I want to show you the use case using this technology of facilitating communication between different stakeholders in large organizations, large enterprises, and leveraging that capability of generating summaries of vast amounts of information. And to do so, I want to use one of the best reading materials that's around. So let's summarize Safe's ebook, Spatial Data for the Enterprise for Dummies. It's an excellent read. It's over 40 pages long. So some stakeholders will want another way to consume it. Now, the app we will use is an FME Flow hosted instance, and we just need to upload the Dummies book to the app. And once the file is available to the service, we configure some parameters so that the app can email back the result. And then the service starts to read the PDF, and the AI produces a summary of the document and sends it back. It sends it back by email. And that summary includes an overall synopsis, and it also includes important keywords. So it starts with the overall synopsis. Then you see some of the keywords that are in the document. And we even configured it to detect the language. You can see here the language is in English, and then a page-by-page summary of the document. Now, this type of AI approach is all about increasing the efficiency of exchanging information with different stakeholders, stakeholders that need to analyze large volumes of detailed documentation, and providing it to them in an accessible and comprehensive way. Now, taking this innovation a little bit further in our labs is the extraction of geographic information from maps that are embedded in PDF documents. And the workflow you're looking at now, it allows us to extract this geographical context directly from a variety of maps that can be contained in technological and scientific documents, such as geological reports or scientific articles. And what we're doing here is using the FME platform as a glue that orchestrates this range of AI services like Microsoft Cognitive Services, Amazon Recognition, and OpenAI ChatGPT. So let's have a look what it actually does. Now, for the sake of the demo, we've prepared a single-page document from a report that comes in PDF format, and it has an embedded map. So we'll open the document here so you can have a look. And behind the scenes, FME reads this PDF and extracts the map that you're looking at from the document. And we send that map to Microsoft's computer vision service to check that it's actually a map. It looks like a map and not a picture of, let's say, a Dutch cow in a field. And we then send that image to Amazon Recognition, and their service grabs the map labels and place names on the map with some OCR magic and turns it into text that we can use. And that text is then being sent to OpenAI, and we ask it to return to us the coordinates of those map labels, basically doing some geocoding there. And we stream back that map with some of the clickable labels exposed for you to interact with it. Now we're going to process another report that contains a more schematic and stylized map, and again, some more location information. Now, if we open that document, you see that the map looks a little bit different. It's a more stylized map. Again, some location information, of course, you see here, Robin Hood Airport, Nottingham. It's just to show that the tool can cope with low resolution cartographic maps, but also with more schematic and stylized maps. Now here you see some of the responses again that come from the FME Flow app. And we'd like to do some further testing. It's been a fun R&D project so far, and we encourage you to interact with it to see how it performs, and so we can refine it further. Now, to close off, I'd like to say that we see a ton of opportunities for ChatGPT, but also a ton of opportunities for FME Flow combined with ChatGPT. And with the accelerated development, we feel that we've just scratched the surface in the past couple of years and look forward to what's to come next. Now, since ChatGPT is focused on natural language processing, its capabilities can be harnessed to support various aspects of geospatial workflows. And FME, of course, makes that possible by helping us to federate all those connections that we also saw earlier with all these different AI systems. Enhancing data pre-processing, transformation, analysis, and visualization. ChatGPT can contribute to a more efficient and insightful geospatial data processing and decision-making process. Well, that's it for now. Let's go over to Christian.
Thank you, Dave.
I think Dave just showed us a few ways that that kind of blow our mind on how easy it is to use, generative AI. So that was really cool.
I mean, I know we say it often with FME that the only thing that limits you is your imagination, and that's now taken to a whole new order of magnitude. And thanks, Dave, for kind of cracking that open for us and really seeing what can be done. It's pretty amazing. But I think, is it time for a poll, Elizabeth?
It is, yes. So we do have a poll launch there under the polls tab on the bottom right. Are you planning to use generative AI? And a few different options there that best fit your use.
That's exciting to see. There's a lot who have plans in the next 12 months. Yeah, just looking at the results, it looks like there's quite a lot of individuals here who are planning on adopting this in the next 12 months. So that's really exciting to see.
Yeah, interesting. And I'll just make a plug here. It's really, what's really interesting about generative AI is the response people have. There's generally two camps. There's folks who feel that maybe in somehow it threatens their position or their role, like at SAFE, for example. And then there's others who are, I think Dave used a really great term there, who are really curious, and they are always exploring, new things and how to embrace them. And Dale and I are obviously, and Christian and Elizabeth are all curious people. But I think the thing to tell people is, no, embrace it. It's actually an accelerator. It's like like Dale used to, and I used to dig ditches. I was a shovel guy, and Dale got a backhoe, and I said, no, true holes are dug by hand. Well, you can sort of think, you can guess who could dig bigger holes faster and do a better job. So Dale and I, I looked at Dale, walked over, and said, let's quit this. Let's go into software. So that story is completely untrue. But you can think of generative AI as this accelerator, the same thing, but for our cognitive abilities. It still needs the driver. I could buy 10 ditch diggers and have them in my yard, but nothing's going to happen. It needs a driver. It needs somebody in the seat. And so, we talk about, Dale with generative AI is better than Dale. Don using generative AI is better than Don. But Dale and Don still have to drive, or Dave, you still have to drive it and read the responses, verify them, and all that thing. So it really is an exciting thing. And companies, all of us are better if we, if we use it and watch over it and kind of make sure that it's being used for things that can help, make the world a better place, right? It is an amazing cognitive tool. So yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's all good. Perfect to fill some dead air when the poll's going on. So that's great. Yeah, I guess we can close the poll at this point. And get going with the next section. So we'll start to talk about the updates to the OpenAI transformers that we initially created and released. I think it was around early January or late December when they actually got released. We did that webinar early on in the year. So what's changed since then? It's been a wild few months, so we'll see what's going on with the new transformers. So if this is your first time looking at the transformer parameters, this was the original look where we were only able to connect to the OpenAI service, and it was called the OpenAI Completions Connector. Essentially, you had to provide your OpenAPI key, and then you could enter in your prompt, select your model, kind of all the basic parameters that were available in the OpenAI authentication or OpenAPI specification was available in this transformer. And since then, Azure has released that they have their own OpenAI flavor. So you can actually authenticate using either service now. So you're able to provide your own OpenAI API key or your Azure OpenAI API key. That is a mouthful to say, so I'm going to try to prevent saying that from here on out. But you can also provide your base URL, so that's specific to your Azure portal instance. This just makes sure you're connecting to your Azure instance and not someone else's, and not using the generic service from OpenAI. So this also allows you to specify the API version. This is something that is mentioned in their documentation. It's not something as simple as selecting today's date. There are specific API versions. Some of them are formatted slightly differently, so that is something that you'll have to refer to in the documentation if you're going to be using Azure OpenAI. Aside from that, what's going on? They've released GPT-4, so that model is available in both versions of this. So you can kind of specify which model you're using. Obviously, you'll have a bit more fine-tuning abilities on the OpenAI side of things, but you can kind of do some customization on the Azure side as well. So now we have support for both OpenAI and Azure AI. So again, just using that base URL and selecting the version. One difference between the Azure OpenAI and original OpenAI is that with OpenAI, they specify the model names. So you're stuck with those names versus in Azure, which we'll see in a second here. You can deploy your own model name. So in this case, I'm using model GPT-4. That's not actually how it's written on the Azure portal side, which we'll see in just a second here. So you use a little bit different naming convention there. If you actually jump into Azure portal just to see what's going on, it's pretty simple to actually obtain your keys and your endpoints. So this is just under the Cognitive Services Azure OpenAI resource. And then you can go down to the keys and endpoints. You have one of two keys. This is dependent on the instance. You can, of course, deploy multiple instances in the specified region that you'd like. I think this is primarily available in North America and Central Europe at the moment, but more instances will be available as soon as Microsoft adds them. So that actually adds a really big benefit to using the Azure OpenAI service, is that you can actually choose where the model is living. And if you combine that with something like FME Server running, or FME Flow rather, running on that same same data warehouse, then your job should process a little bit faster. So you have a little bit more flexibility running the Microsoft Azure OpenAI service. Obviously, that is dependent on your organization if you actually use Azure or not. So going back to the model deployments, on the model deployments tab, you'll see that there are the two options. So on the right-hand side, we have the model. That's the actual name from OpenAI, and then the model deployment name that is specific to Azure. So this is where you'll essentially grab that name. That's something that is user-defined. In my case, I just used the same one, so I knew exactly what I was using. But that's exactly what you would write into the transformers. And what else is new? So we've also, since the original webinar, ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo has become publicly available, and now GPT-4. So we have a new custom transformer for that as well, which is called the OpenAI Completions Connector. And that allows you to do the chat completions rather than just the original completions. So this is a slightly different way of inserting a prompt. They're actually called messages into your OpenAI service. In this case, you'll actually need to define a system prompt. So this is actually going to initialize the system, tell it what it's actually need to answer. So in this case, we're going to say you're an AI assistant that helps people find information about FME. And then the user asks the question. So it's a lot more conversational. The initializing message from the system is absolutely critical. And that's what Don, Dale, and Dave were talking about earlier, where you can provide some context to what you want the model to actually output for you. So this is something that's kind of preparing the model for what answer needs to come back to the user. So this is a great advancement with the AI model sets. So the difference between chat completions and regular completions, again, is that the original completions, they're more or less ready for consumption. You can fine tune them. I think that's more specific to the OpenAI service rather than Azure. I'm not sure if that's publicly available yet. But again, that chat completion has those three roles, and that would be the system to initialize or set the behavior of that model. The assistant would be the thing that actually answers, and the user is the person that asks. So very similar to that initial prompt that you were using previously in the original completions. And so all of this has been wrapped up into another custom transformer. So this is just using that OpenAI ChatGPT connector. It's exactly the same authentication of type as the OpenAI completions connector. Obviously, it's formatted slightly differently because we're using messages instead of prompt now. So you'll have the ability to specify the role and the content, which in this case, we're doing from attribute values. The one thing that I would note here is that group by is actually very important here because you need to have something that actually combines those messages into a long thread versus writing a single prompt. So that's something that we'll take a look at in a demo in just a minute here. Other than that, all of the parameters are pretty similar. I think the original completions connector has a few more parameters, and this is something that's just specific to the OpenAI API method. So we'll see just a quick look at what the custom transformer actually looks like. And inside of it, what's going on is, since we can use that group by parameter, we're actually going to format the message for you. And this will kind of take care of all the formatting for the JSON, put it all into context for the model. So it'll put in that system message, it'll put in the user message, and then have it all pre-prepared for you in order to hit that API endpoint. So we'll take a look at what this actually looks like in action now. So we'll kind of compare and contrast the two transformers here. So with the OpenAI completions connector, this is typically done with just a single stream. Again, you're going to be using a prompt. In this case, I'm using an attribute value to fill that in. And we're just going to be asking for the top 10 businesses in the world. So in this case, it'll be running from a single stream versus the ChatGPT connector is going to be using two streams where we actually have to initialize that data set, or that model rather, and we're going to say it's a bot for getting a company profile, and then have the user message or the prompt in this case. So this is the actual question that we're going to be feeding in. Of course, that could be used as a published parameter, but just for the demo, it's in an attribute value. And we can take a look at what's actually going on in the OpenAI ChatGPT connector. So again, we're just grouping by that conversation ID. This is something that you can make up if you don't have a conversation ID already. You could just use a simple counter. It'll just be used to aggregate those messages and then provide a response back in the proper format. The output of this, in this case, we're actually going to be fragmenting since we're asking for 10 features. We'll get 10 features back, and the result is going to be very similar between the two data sets. They'll see there's slight differences. I'll just pause that for a quick second here. We'll see there's slight differences because they are different models. The top one, we were using GPT-4 versus in the OpenAI completions connector, we were using text DaVinci. So you can see in the visual preview, there's just some different formatting values. So we have 57.4 and the word billion versus in the text GPT or the DaVinci one, it actually wrote out the whole number. So there's slight variations between the two. You can be explicit and ask for specific formatted values back, but that's just something to be aware of.
Right, Chris. So if I wanted to, like, let's say I had a bunch of data coming in and I wanted to ask, the questions varied on different companies, then what I could do is use the OpenAI ChatGPT connector, tell it one time with the system, oh, you are a marketing assistant, blah, blah, blah. And then as the companies roll through, I would be able to, use the same chat ID and then just send all the messages as if row by row into the OpenAI ChatGPT connector. And it would have some context because it had the same chat ID. Did I get that right?
Exactly, yeah. So that's the benefit of it, is you actually do have the ability to provide some context, and essentially that would be like looping back in a sense. So that would be providing the previous message history, which is kind of the benefit of using ChatGPT versus just general completions, is you can feed in a lot more. If I go back into those parameters, I think it's way back here. Yeah. I think it was right around here. You can actually have a lot more tokens available in the ChatGPT connector. I think they have upped that to, I want to say I'm probably gonna get this wrong. I think it's in the 4,000s versus the completions connector is kind of limited to 2,000. If someone in the audience knows, feel free to correct me in the chat panel there. But yeah, you have the ability to feed in a lot more content into those messages and into those prompts, essentially.
Okay. Good.
All right. So at this point, I think I will hand things over to Dale, who's going to be talking a little bit about the generative AI reader.
Yes, and I think you're going to run the slides for me, right, Chris?
Yes.
So this actually, Dawn, actually, before we can you hop back one, Chris, Dawn, do you want to set the stage for this? Because actually, literally, you saw this on a stage, and we're kind of inspired to suggest this it's safe, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I was at the Gartner show in Florida last month, and there was a lot of presentations I went to, and one of them was a vendor showing the generative AI reader like this, and the audience was blown away, and I was sitting there thinking, wow, that is actually very easy, and compared to other things we've done at SAFE. I don't want to, say that our team's super skilled, but as compared to other things we've done at SAFE, like reading Revit, this is trivial. And so I came back, and Dale and I talked, and we said, well, let's do it. And so here we go.
So here we go. So yeah, the next slide then. And then after we were into this, I saw this tweet and I thought this is a good way to set this up. Is it fair to think of large language models or generative AI as a database with a natural language query interface instead of a SQL interface? And then the person asked, where does the database metaphor break? And Don and I talked about this. You can certainly do queries without knowing SQL syntax of what the language model knows, but you can't really update it. And and then there's somebody else, I got a little snarky one here as the next one. Is it fair to think of humans as a database with a natural language query interface? There's data, a query, and a result that you get from the data in the query, but where does the database metaphor break? And Don, I think you said that sometimes humans can't be updated either.
That's right. And like ChatGPT, all of us have an uncle who, no matter what question you ask him, he does have an answer. And I've never had ChatGPT come back to me and say, I don't know.
You're going to see
his answer is, it should have said, I don't know.
You're going to see an example of exactly that bravado coming up. Don's going to be impressed. So yeah, let's go to the next slide. So the team went away and created generative AI reader that you can see the sort of parameters there. It asks you for, or you ask it for a list of items, and that's the prompt. You just say, hey, I want to know all the top NFL teams or something like that. And it will look after creating the field names for you. I mean, if you want to, you can be more verbose and say, I want these field names, but hey, why would you? Because, hey, we're lazy. And then it just generates you rows of data. So what it does for you compared to the stuff Chris was showing, in Chris's examples where you're chatting, you have more work to do if you want to get several things back from one prompt. We're kind of looking after that for you here. You ask for something that you expect many results from, and then it will give you those results. I'll just talk a little bit about the interface. We also made the possibility to go between Azure as well as OpenAI, and we think that's important for the future. When you're in the Azure land, you once again have these deployments you can use and so on. And we think this is going to be even more useful when the AI being queried has your organization's data or has access to the internet. Right now, these examples are accessing the known knowledge of the earth at some point in time in the past. So they won't change their answer really. And that's why we have the bottom thing there, use a cache, because it's a little bit slow giving you the answer back. And if you're just asking something where you know you're going to get the same thing every time, there's no reason to actually spend the money and do that query over and over again. However, someday when the AI has the ability to go out there and ask for things via plugins, maybe in the ChatGPT universe, or perhaps you've seeded it with your own data and every night you update your sales records with your inventory or something, then you'll get more dynamic things back. So this is really proof of concept. It might already be a little bit useful, but bear in mind that it's only able to answer questions that it knows the answer to in a static way. So anything more you want to add to that part, Don?
No, this is great, Dale. And yeah, and I think it's important that Dale hit the important point is this is not, this is sort of like Google Earth images. I remember people would go out and put their big sign on their roof and wondered why they couldn't see it on Google Earth. This is kind of the same thing. It's a snapshot in time.
Yeah. Eventually, maybe it won't be, but today it is. So let's get the next slide and let's go through some examples. So here's a softball example. I don't know why you would actually do this, but okay, 10 popular children's names along with the corresponding nickname. I think someone in here in the chat said that they were using the this for naming their next dog. So this could be, 10 popular dog names. And so you get a table of answers back and off you go. And it's nice to see Will in there. I think that's because of probably the new Picard episodes, Don, with Will Riker.
Yeah, that's right.
Clawing its way up to number 3 there. Exactly. Actually, my son was named after a Star Trek character, and I won't get into that right now. So the next slide we've got starts to be a little bit of FME Flex, where we say all 50 US states, their 2-letter code, an example zip code, and the capital city. And what's this? I see a map because we did some prompt engineering that if we told the AI, hey, if there's any location at all that might be related to this, give us a point feature. And so this is us saying we're more than just a pretty table. We can also together with our friend ChatGPT, get some locations. Now, all of it might be suspect, but nonetheless, it's given us something.
Yes, yes. And so you can use this, Dale, really. You can even use, generative AI as a, a fast and dirty geocoder, right?
Yes. Again, someone will have to figure out how good it is, but yes. So that's this example. And so let's go to the next one here. So now we start to say, okay, this is a little Canadian thing. All the CFL teams, their team name, blah, blah, blah. And the thing that just pops out, is there anybody on the line from Saskatchewan today? Man, do you guys spend a lot going to football games? And of probably the least populated province in Canada, well, at least by density of population, by area, and yet they have the highest average attendance. Isn't that what pops out to you, Don?
Yeah. And anybody who's been to Regina knows the the Rough Riders, it's a big deal when they play. So it's a lot of fun to be in Regina when they're playing, for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. So I've done this with the NFL teams as well and learned a lot about my American geography. But now let's take a look at maybe combining these together. And let's go to the next slide. And they didn't do that. I don't know why I like Boise, Idaho. Is there anybody on the line from Idaho to kind of fact check this? I did some checks. I just said, hey, tell me the top. You see there the prompt I used, and again I got some locations out of it, and based on a little bit of looking, this did seem right. And I learned that bodybuilding.com is actually an actual thing, and it's in Boise, Idaho. Don, did you know that?
I knew about bodybuilding.com, but I did not know it was in Idaho, Boise, Idaho. So there you go.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought, okay, that's kind of an interesting one-off kind of thing. And you could imagine, even this doing some analysis. If you're planning a road trip to some place, you can start asking questions. And then let's go to the next one where I actually combine these all together. I use that query for the US state names. And then I go into FME's feature reader using the generative AI reader, feeding in the results from that first one. So for each of those 50 rows that I got on the first one, I go one at a time and say, give me the top 10 companies by revenue in that city and that state with the address, And
what can I jump in there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and Dale here shows how you can combine different queries together. But remember, the thing about FME is that first query could be coming out of your database. It doesn't have to be a query. And FME supports more systems than anything. So that could be coming from anything. And then you can use generative AI in the second feature reader to add more value. So yeah, really, really good.
Now, the thing that you notice, I only got 490 rows out through that port there. And why is it 490? Because one state, it refused to answer. And the team and I dug in, and it will not tell me answer this question for Richmond, Virginia. It says there's a content filter being applied. So I don't know what kind of X-rated businesses there are in Richmond, Virginia. Anybody from Richmond, Virginia on the line? It absolutely refuses to answer this for Richmond, Virginia. So you just never know when the AI is going to be cranky.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah. But flip to the next slide there, Chris. So here you see some of the results we get. And you can see the kind of layout. But I noticed that Delaware is like that Don said about that uncle that doesn't know the answer. And so in Delaware, it just made things up.
Yeah.
If you look on the left, company A through J.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how they name companies in Delaware.
Well, I know Delaware is where like a huge number of companies are incorporated. There might be so many that it just can't even cope with it.
But this really drives home what we're talking about, Dale, and that you need a person in the driver's seat, right?
Yes.
You just can't take the responses of this, for verbatim, because it sometimes gives you goofy. What do they call it? They say it's hallucinating. Is that the term they use? Yes.
Yes. And someone's asking how the results are geocoded. FME is just, we've prompt engineered this so that we tell the AI, hey, if there's a location, please give it to us. And then we fish that out and make the point feature. So let's go to the next slide here. So then putting it all together, I thought, well, with Chris, let's make an interactive HTML map for each city. And so let's go to the next. So maybe actually hop it back one, Chris. I'll just point out that I'm doing a little bit of geospatial processing. I'm getting for each city the convex hull, because that's a nice old operation you and I did years ago, Don.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. And I hold the hulls to be coming at the ends at the bottom of the report. And then I use the HTML report generator and I get some HTML files, one's for each city. So let's hop to Boise, Idaho, because that's where I like to go. And there you can kind of get a sense of where those businesses are. And then I have one last slide.
Let's go back to that. So Dale did all this on form, and so it works great. He could publish this to FME Flow, and then a parameter could be, you enter the name of any city in the United States, and then you would get an interactive map being pushed through your browser. So, and then you could have everybody in your organization using it. So it just shows how FME makes all this capability, available to everybody in your organization who don't even know what's going on underneath, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the next slide actually drives home what Kyle's asking. How do you know that it's not just BSing you? And I say here, you have to trust with verification. There is no way to know right now, at least with the technology that we have available to us, where it's getting this from. And so you have to, it's like a guess. It's you have to do some testing yourself. But here is the map for Montgomery, Alabama, which I don't believe, Don. I don't think, do you believe these?
No. I wish when it didn't know, it would be like that uncle and say, oh, let me tell you, young grasshopper, and then tell you the story, because at least that prompt, that prefix would tell you that it was making stuff up, right? So anyway, lastly here, this reader is available on the SAFE Labs. We're not going to say that it's fully supported by SAFE at this time, but if any of you want to grab it, you can go to the hub. The link is actually on this page, or we can chat it out, and you can download this thing. Look, it had 0 downloads last time I looked on. But you can grab it, get yourself some keys, and start playing around and having fun. Thanks, Chris, for doing that. And with that, I'm handing it off to Chris to take us home with some other examples we've been playing with.
All right. Yeah, so going beyond the OpenAI space obviously is a very exciting thing, but it's very limited to OpenAI. We're more than just a single trick dog here, so we're going to explore beyond OpenAI. So we took one small step and one giant leap AI for mankind. So what we're going to be doing here is just talking through how FME is really that the vessel that allows you to connect to anything with an API very easily integrate your data with AI services that are API based. So with FME, you can let your data drive any generative AI service, similar to what Dale just showed there. It can help you with any fine tuning ability if you need to feed in data and prepare it for your model set. FME can help automate the fine-tuning of AI requests as well. So that's something that's very helpful. On the generative side, obviously, we can send our information to the prompts if you want us to do with the user parameter or send in your data. Obviously, that's something that's very easy to do. And on the other end, too, it's something that's very helpful for distributing the data. Again, it's not just a single pipe going into the AI. What are you going to do with the data after that? And FME has a lot of different options with what you can do once the data has been processed by your AI.
Yeah.
So we're just going to talk really quickly about FME strengths here again. We have easy API integration with the HTTP caller transformer. So that's kind of the one transformer that allows you to connect to anything that has a REST or SOAP-based API. Very basic to work with. You can provide your bearer API key or token rather. If you're doing web connections with OAuth, it's very easy to configure with web services and web connections. We have articles linked for all of these things in the slides. So that's what those underlined texts are for. It'll give you information on how to actually configure all of these things. But what about once you're actually receiving the data back from the HTTP caller? We have a lot of different transformers that help you parse the response. If it's text-based, we have the JSON transformers. You can do things like format, extract values, fragment, flatten, do whatever you need to do with the JSON. If it's raster-based and you need to do image processing, we also have transformers for that. So you have a lot of different flexibility with what you actually want to do with the data coming back from your AI service. So this is where, again, Dale was kind of mentioning you're only limited by your imagination, and that has now been extended with use of API-based AI services. So one other system that we connected to that was AI-based is the Leap AI connector. And of course, we have a couple of other AI-based packages available on the FME Hub as well. It was just to simply demonstrate how easy it is to configure these. So if we go into the next, I think I'm actually in a couple of slides, I'll have a recording of going actually into the transformer. And we'll just see how the HTTP caller will be looped back there, how the web connection works and everything like that. So all of this is really easily distributed on the FME Hub. So this is something that can be, it's fully user-driven. Our partners like Tensing have uploaded their transformers there. You can upload packages, formats, and anything like that can go up onto the FME Hub. And this is just an easy way to share it with the greater FME community. So that's where you're seeing we're posting a lot of these things to the SafeLab publisher. Here comes demo time. Okay, so we'll take a look at the Leap AI connector. Again, it's very similar to the OpenAI service where you feed in a prompt. That's just the image that we want to get back. In this case, I'm going to be asking for the FME lizard with a Zipster toy, and they're going to be on a hike in the mountains. And I'll edit the custom transformer just so we can see what's going on in here. The main transformer in this is the HTTP caller. And again, this is something that's just going to be used to interact with that Leap AI service. So we'll be creating a job essentially, and then we're going to loop back and check to see when is that job actually done. So we're simply just using a tester to see is the job status in progress or finished. And once it's finished, let's actually go and get that image and then see what the results are like in FME.
Yeah. So Chris, to be clear, a user doesn't have to dive in there, right? They just go to show on the main screen what they do. A user, they just drag up the Leap AI. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So what we see right at the start here, you absolutely do not have to edit this or embed it into your canvas. All you have to do is type in the Leap AI onto the canvas and then hit enter to add it to actually add it to the canvas. And then we'll go into those parameters. And then you just have to feed in your API key, specify the model, and enter your prompt for what you actually want to get the image back of. So yeah.
Cool. And what does that picture look like?
What does that picture look like at the end? That's the FME lizard. Except I think it got a little confused. I wanted it to be the FME lizard with the Zipster robot. I think it turned into the FME Zipster lizard. So it's a little bit of a mashup there.
They've sort of been at cross paths, and this is what happens, you know, like, yeah. So, wow, that's one mean lizard.
Yeah, but it got the mountains right. It is a robot, and there is a lizard in there. So it is definitely a unique image there.
That's right.
It looks a bit like the Gorn, perhaps, Dawn, or else maybe the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, if I saw that lizard coming at me, I don't know what I'd be running.
We've got Autobots rolled out, mentioned in the comments there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll move on to the last section here, and this is just the in-product AI updates. And this is currently a prototype that is not publicly available. So we will definitely be wanting your feedback on any of these. There will be some questions in the survey at the end of the webinar. So please stick around for that. We want your feedback. This is going directly to our product management team. This is something that we're seriously considering. Obviously, Don and Dale are very interested in this as well, and your feedback is very important here. So we'll talk about your FME form co-author, and this is going to be an exclusive look at development that we've been working on for things like AI for regex, for SQL and Python. We've seen it with the generative AI ability, and that's on the package on the FME Hub, so that's already available to you. These things hopefully can be available to the public at some point in the near future. Mm-hmm. So we'll first take a look at using AI directly in FME form for regex. So what we're going to do is go into the regex editor, and then we can paste in a description just using natural language for what we actually want to match for. So in this case, let's actually look for any URLs that start with HTTPS or HTTP, and we can actually get an explanation, and it'll pre-fill the test string and the regex expression in those parameters for you. So this is a perfect tool for someone like me where, well, in all honesty, whenever I'm doing regex, I'm on Stack Exchange, I'm Googling because I don't know regex. So this is just a great way to expedite your authoring experience here. And not only does it fill in what the regex should be, it does give you that explanation, so you can hopefully learn along the way and not have to rely on this every single time. The next example that we have here is for SQL. So it can be in any of the SQL parameters. It can be in the inline querier. You can do any geometry SQL related to it as well. So all of this is fully kind of, I would say, integrated in all of the SQL prompts that you would see in FME form. Same thing for regex, and the last one is Python. Anywhere that you would expect to see those parameters pop up, you'll have them in those dialogues. So in this case, we're just going to get a SQL statement to find all roads that intersect with parks and all parks that intersect with the roads. And it'll provide that SQL for you. And not only does it fill it, it actually runs. So yeah. So in this case, it's a little less dynamic than the regex, because obviously regex gives you that test string so you can see what it should be matching as. SQL won't really give you those examples, but again, just helping that workflow, speeding it up for your authoring experience.
Yeah, huge accelerator. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last one we have here is for Python, and same thing here, not much of a surprise, but we have a couple of additional options instead of just generate. So you can actually refine your code. You can have it integrate some comments into your script, so you can help make it easier to maintain. And you can also have it, again, explain what is going on in that Python code. So hopefully you don't actually have to use Python in any of your form workspaces, but if you do, you might have a AI assistant here, because it's very similar to the SQL or regex instances where maybe most of your time you're on Stack Exchange finding out what all of these things mean. Hopefully that just expedites your process here. So same thing here. We've generated the Python script and we'll actually run it. So just to prove that this is actually functional. And this is fully AI created Python. And it's just going here. And there we go. And just showing off that it actually completed. I think in that case, it was checking for nulls and then replacing the values with missing values. So nice. Yeah, that kind of concludes all of the demos that we had for today. We have a couple more polls to go out here. So which of these authoring assistance features would you use? So obviously there's been a lot of discussion in the chat panel. I see there's a lot of questions that we need to get answers out to, but we want your feedback here. So if we could launch that poll, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, this is all prototypical, put together fairly quickly. There's a path to productization ahead, and we're just curious, would anybody care? Yeah, okay, so the answer is, it looks like they do care, Don.
Yeah. I think they want it all, and they want it now, and absolutely, yeah. It's just such a big accelerator, and we'll just opens up the world to so many different things, right? And the exciting thing is this space is moving so fast. You can expect more and more of these integrations from, safe software and embedded in the FME. So yeah.
It's interesting, SQL being quite high. One thing that really struck me recently was one of our seasoned experts at SAFE commented about some complicated SQL statement that was in a workspace, and they said, well, I can't figure this out. I'd have to ask Steve to help me, because Steve is probably our best SQL interpreter. And then I realized a huge thing that we can do is actually just tell you what the SQL does. You don't have to, that's the other side. The SQL exists already. Let's just explain it. And that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, and I'm super excited about things like Python and R, telling me to write the Python for me. And then of course you still have to test it, or write R for me. I mean, those two, environments, being able to pull them in really, really easily, that they're so, my daughter uses R and she goes on and on and on about how amazing it is. And, and this again, really, really makes it easier to access all these tools. Yeah.
So let's pop up the next one then, Elizabeth, or if we actually had this, these last things we showed in Workbench, just to get a sense, if you're a Workbench user, how often would you use them? And so, would you use them? And you can see there, we gave you some choices, like you'd never use them. You'd use them lots. Where do you think you'd land? And of course, we don't really know, but let's see just to get a wild guess from people. I don't write a regular expression every hour, but it's probably like, once every couple of weeks, I got to write a regular expression. So it's kind of an interesting one, but boy, would it be nice to have that when I did.
Oh, I know, because we all know we can get it right, but it's a lot of, they're not exactly intuitive. So you do a lot of reading and then you figure it out and you get it working. And this just is, so good.
Yeah. Okay, I think that gives us a good sense. Once a week seems to be the one. Look, it's a majority now. It would control the Senate if it was a Senate race done.
52%.
That's all it takes.
Yeah. And so just one more mention here. Again, your feedback is extremely important. So we're going to have that survey coming out at the end of the webinar. And I think at this point, too, it's a great opportunity to say thank you to all the incredible effort that's gone on the development side of things. So there's been a team putting together most of these demos and all of the features that needed to be available in the GUI for this. So incredible job to all of the developers that helped out with that.
Yes.
Yeah. It really is. And it's a lot of fun, I'm sure, right? Like we have just, go back to that word curious. We have a lot of curious driven people who love technology, and this is an exciting time.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. And I think we have one more poll. So which use case has the most value for your business? And then after this, we'll get to conclusion and resources, and hopefully get into a quick portion of Q&A if we have some time. I see we're running a little bit late. So if you do need to hop off, please feel free, but otherwise you can stick around for the Q&A that we can do after resources. And it looks like integrating AI into the FME workspace has is taking the pole position here.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite have the majority.
Getting there.
Yeah.
And I know some folks selected all of them, right? Because
The good news is that 3 of the 4 are able to be used today. You can go grab the transformers. You can take the Tensing stuff. Thanks, Tensing, again, for making that available. And the AI reader is there for the taking. I'm actually pleased to see so many people trying it. Let us know what you do with it. It's going to be exciting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I think we can wrap that one up. Looks like the votes have slowed down. So we'll get into just some conclusion and resources at this point.
Yeah, and really, I mean, this is the point, right? With FME, you can connect any system you have, any data source you have to generative AI. And that's really, the power that FME brings. So you can see all these different data sources, all these hundreds and hundreds of systems, and you can bring them all to what you've seen today. So, all with no code. So that's exciting. And then, if you're new, we have 90-minute way to get started on FME, the accelerator. Or if you've been using FME, for a long time, we found a lot of people who take the accelerator have been long-term FME users who just want to get a really quick overview of the entire platform and all it can do for them. And so there's that. If you're new to spatial data and your organization and you want to understand the value that spatial data brings, the other thing that Gartner identified at the conference was spatial data is one of the 2 data types that organizations must understand to remain competitive with geospatial. So, this book is targeted at a very high level, understanding the value of geospatial or spatial data to the enterprise. And yeah. And last but not least, lots of webinars. Everything's recorded. And yeah, and Elizabeth is our webinar coordinator. Yeah. Yeah, and more learning. At SAFE, everything is free. All this online training is free. Many of them are instructor-led, but they're free. And same with the Academy, instructor-led, and it's free. And so, yeah, sign up. Let us know what you want to do. Dave at Tensing, he also does training as well through his. And then you've seen a lot about the FME Hub. The world today is moving faster and faster than ever, faster than any company can have releases. And so the beauty of FME Hub is now the FME platform can be extended by SAFE, by partners, by anybody. And in this fast moving world of generative AI, it really shows the value of the FME platform in its agility with the FME Hub. Yeah. And if you're on the community, you get a community badge, SMWAL. And if you want to join the community, just click that link. So yeah, and there's some happy safers. Yeah, you want to talk about this one, Dale?
Sure. We're headed all to Bonn, Germany. Join us there for the Peak of Data Integration. The FME User Conference promises to be the largest FME UC ever held, September 5th through 7th. Don, I think you're going, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going, Dale. You and I registered yesterday.
Yes, we shot an exciting video. You won't want to miss that video.
That's right. That's right.
Our first time in front of the...
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say it's our first time in front of a green screen, so we'll see what the team does.
That's right. That's right. I'm a little bit worried, but yeah. So even if you're not an FME user, the Peak of Data Integration is going to be all the ways that data integration is used to solve new problems. So we usually expect 15 to 20% of attendees are not FME users, and so if you're in Europe, come to Bonn. If you're in North America, come to Bonn. If you're anywhere in the world, Dale, really come to Bonn. It's going to be a lot of
Yeah. So anyway, I think with that, we're done, and it's 9 o'clock. If you have to leave, thanks for joining us. If you want to hang around, we'll have a little bit of Q&A here for a few minutes, but really appreciate all your attention and your time and your partnership with us as we journey through a rapidly changing world. And I especially want to thank Dave from Tensing for sharing what he and his team have been up to. Thank you so much for your, frankly, very inspirational work, Dave.
Thanks. You're welcome, Dale, and Don, and Christian, and everybody else here on this webinar.
Are you going to be in Bonn, Dave?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
In fact, it sounds like you're halfway to Bonn as we speak right now.
Almost, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, Dave left early.
Is he going on foot, maybe?
I don't want to miss it. I just want to be there in time.
Camping out to get tickets, yeah.
You want the good seat, Dale.
Anyway, there was a great amount of questions and answers. I don't know, is there any we want to particularly look at? If we didn't answer you right now, the team will be getting back to you. I think there's quite a lot there. I think I'll just touch on a couple. That HTML generation is an interesting one. People do use FME for writing HTML, and I can imagine us having some help with that, especially for Flow apps, Don. I think that's a common output.
Absolutely. That would be really interesting, wouldn't it? Yeah. So I'll make a note of that one. I love it.
Yeah.
And any ideas? I mean, we have a team here of people thinking about different ways to use generative AI. But anybody out there who has an idea on how FME or safe software should embrace generative AI, please do send it in. This is a fast-moving world, and there's so many great ideas. And almost, as Dale said earlier, if you can imagine it, you can, there's a good chance we can make it happen. So, really look forward to doing that. So,
yeah. On the HTML side, another person asked, is this the stuff we showed with the augmented or assisted authoring? Definitely that'll only be in new FME versions. We will not be able to put that back into old ones. And so that's one thing. We still don't really know exactly how we're going to productize this, and that's a new frontier for us. But, stay tuned and journey with us.
That's right. It'll happen soon for sure. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Good. And I think about the FME technology being part of the plugin universe. I know we've got some folks at SAFE looking at that actually, so that within the ChatGPT universe, there is this concept they have called plugins, and we believe FME Flow could be a provider of information to the natural language processing, which would be a way to get your organization's data into someday your own little private ChatGPT sort of walled arena. But so we are looking at that. It's a expanding frontier. But watch this space. And I think that's actually the most amazing possibilities is when you combine. Dawn and I were just watching yesterday a video that was posted about some kind of data analysis plugin that's been done where you can upload a CSV and let it go nuts inside of ChatGPT. Did you take a look at that, Dawn?
Yeah, I did. It was really, really impressive. You could do data analysis on it. It would, do histograms, all sorts of different things. It was really, really great. Yeah.
So you can imagine that thing.
And that brings us back to one of the other questions folks had about data leakage to the internet, right? So, and that's it's safe. We have very strict rules on things we do because we obviously don't want our source code leaked to the internet by people asking ChatGPT, please analyze this source code and optimize it and things. So, and that's where the Azure one is really important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that actually, honestly, is one of the challenges with productizing the stuff we just showed in Workbench, because as it stands today, if we use the OpenAI ones, we may not have control of what happens to your questions. So we got to really figure out when you type in something that says, hey, help me find the first 4 digits of this phone number using a regular expression, you may not want that to be part of a training data set. So we have to sort that out.
That's right. That's right. So for sure. So, yep. Good. Well, that's awesome.
I think we might call it a wrap there.
Yeah. And and thanks everybody. And really appreciate it. And Dale, I expect we might be doing this again in 6 months.
I wouldn't be surprised. I have a feeling like just about every day there's enough new developments that you could fill a webinar with, but the team only has so much capacity, and we're going to keep moving forward. And thanks all of you for being along for the ride. We're looking forward to seeing, frankly, how you leverage all this and get stuff done faster. I mean, that's at the end of the day, the value is for all of you to make use of this, for us to provide you tools so you can bring answers to your organization more quickly. And we're proud and honored to be your partner in that.
Great. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.